Mr. Christensen.
Here.
Mrs. Dobus.
Here.
Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Here.
Mr. Nagel.
Here.
Mrs. Rule.
Mrs. Rule?
Mr. Scalzo.
Here.
Mr. Spacuzza.
Present.
Mrs. Turner.
Here.
9 members present.
Thank you. We now have a presentation from our auditing firm, Cipher & Cipher.
Good evening, board members. Thanks for inviting us here tonight. I'm Steve Cipher, Cipher & Cipher. I have with me Luke Rail, a member of the firm who did a lot of the audit work here this year. We're going to turn to page 2. We have a short presentation for you. The audit, as you know, is required by various state and federal laws. The important thing to keep in mind as school directors is that we work for the board and indirectly the public. Our responsibility is to give you an opinion on the financial statement, called an audit opinion. What you've received from us this year is unmodified. It's exactly what you would expect to have as a school district. Anything less than that would be pretty much unacceptable. Moving to the next page, the general fund last year brought in almost $88 million. Local revenues, mainly tax revenues, about 64 million. State revenues, 23.6 million, and a very small amount of federal, 336,000. When we go to the expenditure side of the equation, we spent a bit less than that, about $84.5 million. The largest part of our expenses is instruction, as it would be expected, 52.3 million. Support services, teachers' aides, so forth, 22.6 million. Non-instructional, $1.5 million. Debt service, 6.7 million. Tax refunds, 353,000, and then we contributed to our capital projects fund $578,000. Overall, the unassigned fund balance of the general fund, and this is the 5.24% of the 20 budget, the 1920 budget that we're operating under, went down about almost $1.3 million. And when you look at the next page, you can see a graph of that over the past 10 years. And the comment that we would make about fund balance, it's very important to have a proper unassigned fund balance. It's no different than any of our households. We have to save money, make sure we can pay our bills, pay the mortgage and so forth. We're no different than that, except the numbers are much bigger. When we take a look at the next page, the future challenges that are facing Bethel Park and indeed all school districts. Health insurance rates continue to rise, although we belong to a consortium which has over time been able to stabilize those rates for us. We continue to face unknowns with regard to state funding, whether there will be decreases and so forth. There are uncertainties with regard to all federal programs, especially in the current environment. The last thing that we would point out is that the district share of the retirement contributions to the teachers and employees retirement system are expected to increase at a slower rate than in prior years, but albeit still quite an increase. When we take a look at the capital projects funds, we have two different ones, about 48,000 remaining from an old bond issue, and savings that have been contributed by the general fund over a number of years, $9.4 million, presently stands in at $9,481,000. Whether that's a sufficient number, that's something that the board will have to look at and say, what are the plans, given the ages of the building, deferred maintenance can catch up with you. You need to be careful about that. One final comment on the PISA. These are the rate increases that have been in effect starting with this year and projected forward to 2025. Now, that's only a 2% increase, but if you think about it, it's pretty dramatic that we're spending about 36.5 cents of every dollar of payroll on retirement costs. It's stunningly high. If anyone has any questions, I'm pleased to answer them for you, but thank you all for the opportunity to be the district's auditors.
Thank you very much.
So
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. So our total fund balance, we've heard different numbers floating around. What was the total surplus in our fund balance for fiscal year 2018? I've heard 3.4, 4.3, 1.3.
The total surplus is around $3.4 million in the general fund. The capital projects fund spent $2.1 million for current, upgrades, renovations. So the net was about $1.3 million of the governmental funds in total.
So when you got the two of them together, overall,
Okay.
the 1.4 number.
The fund balance, it's recommended to have a fund balance. What happens as we deplete our fund balance? What can we expect to happen as we deplete?
Minimum of 3, ideally close to the 8% that we're permitted to have by the state for our size of a district. Presently, that number is 5.24% of the budget that we're currently operating under. It's strictly the decision of the board, how good of a fund balance we need. But I can tell you, in auditing 24 schools, the districts without a fund balance really have their hands tied. They have no ability to plan for tomorrow, and it makes life very, very difficult.
And what if there's a tax decrease based on depleting the fund balance? Is that recommended, or is that not recommended? Could that be detrimental long term to the?
Is a tax decrease, is it recommended or is it detrimental?
It's balanced by using fund balance.
We have obviously a very long history of serving school districts. There are 3 instances in my career, which spans 30-some years, where a tax decrease was implemented for a variety of reasons. None of those 3 played out well in the long run. The one thing I would tell you is that all 3 circumstances were different, the whys and so forth. But the single kind of underlying thing is that if the fund balance is not healthy to start with, generally a tax decrease is not a good idea. But time will tell here. You've got to be very vigilant and
Last
Sure.
question. This is more looking forward, but it's based on your management letter. You say that a technique used with success in other school districts is a fund balance policy. When properly designed, a fund balance policy can help stabilize the fund balance at recommended levels and can result in the eventual depolitization of these types of decisions. Do you have any examples of local districts that have fund balance policies that you may be able
we
to
do.
look at?
And I'm sure we wouldn't have any trouble getting a copy of their policies.
Okay.
And Debbie.
Mr. Cipher, Mr. Cipher, one question. What's our total fund balance, committed, general, et cetera? What's the total?
Total fund balance between the general and the capital projects funds is $34.5 million amongst all the reserves and commitments that we have for various items.
And includes commitments for construction, healthcare, and retirement.
Correct.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for business items.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Christensen, seconded by Mr. Nagel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 10th, 2019. So moved. Moved by Ms. Walsh, Ms. Turner, and Mrs. Rule. Seconded by Mrs. Rule. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'd like to announce executive sessions on December 17th, 2019, January 7th, 2020, January 14th, 2020, January 21st, 2020, and January 28th, 2020, for personnel, other legal matters, and to receive information. At this time, we'll have the student government report.
Hi. So right now we're in the middle of Wish Week planning, and Wish Week will be the end of February, the week of the 17th. And during Wish Week, students and teachers will be able to make wishes in boxes on each floor. We're putting boxes in the rotundas, and students can basically fill out slips with like any wish that they want. Like they can ask for food for a specific class, or like a no homework day in a class. And a lot of teachers ask for like coffee and donuts and stuff. And so then at the end of the week, SGA for the next week will try and grant as many wishes as we can. And so then the week after that is Spirit Week, and we have dress up themes and a spirit assembly on that Friday. And then we have a fundraiser to benefit charities helping with wildfire relief in Australia. And then community service. In the fall, we took some high school students to Lincoln Elementary to read to the 2nd and 3rd graders, and we're currently planning to do another visit to Franklin in February. That's it.
Thank you. PTA, PTO report. Did you all get that in your email? Okay. I sent it
Yeah,
today.
it restricted me, I don't know why.
Okay.
I tried to.
Okay. Abraham Lincoln, the students enjoyed their holiday parties and their visit from Santa. They had their annual Martin Luther King bowling party, and it was very well attended. And they're looking forward to their talent show coming up at the end of the month. Ben Franklin kicked off the new year with the Kindness Squad lunch on the 14th. And their winners got to have lunch with the owner of No Limits ATA Martial Arts Studio, who I know she also went and did a presentation in one of the classrooms as well. All of the students got to celebrate Ben Franklin's birthday on Friday the 17th with a sweet treat from the PTO during their lunch times. And the Carnegie Science Center visited on the 23rd to give the kids a free assembly using the SEED program, and the students are very excited. They have their first family dance coming up. It is called the Snowball, and that's on the 31st of this month. Memorial, they're starting off their year with giving to others. The Gratitude Committee and Memorial teachers are collecting gently used clothes and toys, as well as doing a canned food drive. Teachers are collecting the canned foods and incorporating them into math lessons until the 100th day of school, which is February 3rd. The response so far has been really amazing. In addition to collecting the needs for Shim Memorial, just wrapped up a pepperoni roll fundraiser, and raised about $1,500. February is going to bring the annual readathon with the theme of Memorial Loves Reading, just in time for Valentine's Day. And the Odyssey of the Mind teams are in full gear preparing for regional competition on March 7th. Washington Elementary had a very busy holiday season with Cookies with Santa, holiday gift shop, holiday sing-along, and their holiday parties in the classrooms. And all events were highly attended and very well received. The Sarah Spring fundraiser is starting next week. The second annual STEM Family Night will be held, I guess, 4 days ago. new and exciting experiments for the students and families to try. The fourth grade students have an indoor swim party. I guess that was yesterday. And students from the high school were in the school today for Junior Achievement Day. They're planning a Washington Neon Party, a professional light show experience is planned for February 7th. And they are doing a new fundraiser coin drive called Penny Pigs, and that should start on February 3rd. And in an effort to promote hand washing and prevent the spread of germs during cold and flu season, the PTO purchased Purell hand sanitizer refills for the dispensers in the cafeteria, as well as replacing one of the dispensers that was broken. William Penn has been busy raising funds for their school. They held their very first Chuck E. Cheese fundraiser, and a very successful Five Below fundraiser. Panera Bread fundraiser is scheduled for February 13th, and they're in the midst of their first pierogi fundraiser. They're planning a Penny Wars fundraiser in conjunction with the 100th day of school, and the winning classroom will be awarded a pizza party. Also on the 100th day of school, they will be randomly selecting 2 students per grade to win a gift card every 100 minutes. They're getting ready for their Valentine's Day parties. Plans for the largest fundraiser, the calendar party, are in full swing, and they're looking forward to that event, which is on March 14th. The Scholastic Book Fair will be happening the first week of March, and the PTO is looking forward to attending kindergarten registration to welcome new families and hand out PTO information and a new t-shirt for their new Penn students. Neil Armstrong had their annual charity carnival the last day of school before holiday break, and it was very successful. They raised $4,587, which went to SHIM. $4,587 also went to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. The readathon started yesterday and goes through February 7th. The grand prize is a Chromebook, and they are giving out gift cards this Friday and next Friday for students that turn in coupons for reading so many minutes. Spring Spirit Wear sale starts in February. Battle of the Books is coming up soon, and there are actually 29 teams signed up to participate this year. Tonight is the Chipotle Spirit Night, and in March there is an ice skating night coming up that is in the works and being planned. Independent 8th grade parents and guardians met for scheduling night and were given information to help their students prepare to pick classes that they need to graduate and how the high school scheduling process works. GOLD, the Girls Only Leadership Development Program, was held January 24th. The program's after school and goes into the evening. The girls have stations and learn about leadership, and some high school students also come and present what clubs and programs are available to the students in high school. And BOLD, which is the Boys Only Leadership Development, is scheduled for February. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. We also appreciate you sending us it so that we can look it over ahead of your report. Thank you. Solicitor report?
No report tonight, Madam President.
Thank you. Committee reports, Dr. Pascarello?
Thank you. According to Pennsylvania School Boards Association, 9 out of every 10 students in the United States attend public schools, which makes access to high-quality education crucial not only for the children's success, but also for the strength of society. It takes a team of dedicated people, teachers, administrators, staff, parents, and the community to provide that education. The 9 members of our school board are also a key part of this team, making informed decisions that shape our schools. The Pennsylvania School Boards Association annually designates January as School Director Recognition Month, and we are pleased to be able to take some time this evening before we get started to recognizing the challenging but yet vital work that our school board does on behalf of our students, schools, and families. At this time, we would like to present each of you with an envelope containing a certificate from PSBA, as well as a copy of a proclamation designating January as School Director Recognition Month. And as an added token of our appreciation, We have a jar of treats for each of you with a note stating, "Thanks for putting your heart into the Bethel Park School District." Thank you. At this time, I would like the audience to join me in a round of applause to express our gratitude for our school district. Thank you very much, Mrs. Dobus. I did have one other, if that would be okay.
Well, first of all, thank you all for the candy and the recognition.
Thank you for everything that you do for us. One other, I'll kind of set this up in front of you, if that's okay. There, Mrs. Dobus. As many of you may already know, the Bethel Park School District was contacted by the College Board, informing us that we are among a selected group of 250 school districts across the United States and Canada, as well as one of the 26 Pennsylvania school districts to be named to the 10th Annual Advanced Placement Honor Roll. According to the College Board, inclusion on this list shows that the district is successfully identifying motivated, academically prepared students who are ready for AP. To be included on this prestigious list, the district had to increase student participation in AP classes, as well as increase or maintain the percentage of students scoring a 3 or higher on the end of the year course on AP exams. With more students participating and succeeding in AP in Bethel Park, more students are getting a head start on college, as more than 4,000 colleges and universities around the world in 2019 accept AP exam scores in exchange for college credit. Advanced placement or college credit, advanced placement, or both, as well as consideration in the admissions process. We are proud to be honored with this distinction, and I want to take this opportunity to publicly thank the teachers, counselors, administrators at Bethel Park High School, along with our students and parents, for all of their hard work, and encourage even more students to take AP classes in the future. The College Board sent us the certificate, which reads in part, the Bethel Park School District has been named to the 10th Annual AP District Honor Roll for expanding opportunity and improving performance for AP students. The College Board also sent us some posters and banners, which we shared with the high school, as well as posted some of them in the building. I'd like to thank you, Mrs. Dobus, for giving me this opportunity to share this item of good news with you and the community, and I give them a round of applause, if that would be appropriate. I turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Other committee reports. Mrs. Rule, do you want to talk about any of your?
No, after the combined report of February game.
Okay, sounds good.
Mrs.
other-
Dobus, I have one.
Yes.
I actually attended the Wellness Committee meeting today for the district, and there's, I don't know, Janet, if you want to take this or not, but we have Wellness Week coming up, which is a collaboration with the Bethel Park community and the Recreation Department that'll be held on the 28th through 23rd through 28th.
February 23rd through the 28th.
At the community center.
Each evening from 6 to 9 in the evening at the community center. We are offering opportunity for community members to receive information. There will be keynote speakers each night from 7 to 7:45 on different topics. Wellness is the overall theme. Monday is mental health. Tuesday is nutrition. Wednesday is physical health. Thursday is substance abuse and addiction, and Friday is stress reduction and mindfulness. We're excited about it. We have the keynote speakers and tables set up, and everyone is welcome. It's free to the community. We're very excited about it. It is going to be posted on Live Well Allegheny in collaboration with the municipality and the school district, and we hope everybody will be able to come out and get valuable information, have some fun, and enjoy this offering that's being brought to you by the school district and the municipality. It is during the municipality's Try It Week at the community center with Bethel Park Rec, so you could come in and get some information and also try a Zumba class or something like that. So please feel free to come.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other committee reports? Mr. McGregor, you were at the Pathfinder meeting, and I think you said that Mr. Christensen is going to be taking over for
Yes.
that? Okay.
And I'll serve as his backup if he can't make it to the meeting.
Okay, so we'll be changing that committee assignment. Any others? Okay, let's move into then public comments on agenda items.
Jim Means, 3485 South Park Road. I stand in opposition to the proposed effort to raise taxes on the taxpayers of Bethel Park by $4.67 million. This effort is being led by a gang of seven members of the school board who have recently gained control of this district. 4 of these members are new and have not yet been through a single budget cycle. The remaining 3 members have repeatedly shown a lack of basic understanding about the district's various fund balances. A presentation by the Bethel Park Director of Finance that projected a multi-million-dollar revenue shortfalls over the next few years is being used as a justification for this sudden tax grab. However, what isn't being told is that these projections were made by a flawed methodology that was dictated by board members. This flawed methodology overestimates expenses and underestimates revenue increases. It also underestimates the effect of potential Act 1 tax increases. For example, the 2019-2020 budget allocates $4.46 million more in expenditures than the 2018-2019 budget. There's no reason to increase expenditures by almost $4.5 million this year. Unless the new board spends money like drunken sailors over the next few months, we should receive a significant amount of money back to the general fund from the 2019-2020 budget. Nonetheless, this anomaly is included in the projections dictated by the Gang of 7, and they fail to show that tax increases, Act 1 tax increases, are more than adequate to meet Bethel's educational needs for the next several years. It is also significant our finance director has stated in the past he feels our district can finance all of our educational programs through traditional Act 1 increases for the next few years. I challenge anyone on the board to ask Mr. Krasny in this public forum if he believes the financial projections presented in the January 14th budget meeting are likely to occur with prudent financial stewardship and utilization of Act 1 tax increases. I have no doubt the members who have taken control of the board, somebody say something? I have no doubt members who have taken control of the board would vote. Okay, thank you.
Jason Turca, 665 Clifton Road. You walk into any daycare center and you'll see kids playing, and occasionally you'll see kids fighting. And occasionally a teacher will tell a kid, you have to share your toy with another kid. And occasionally a kid will break that toy because they're told to share. A similar thing happened at last June 25th board meeting here in this very room. Our school board suddenly cut $5 million from our children's education. It's hard to quantify this number, so let's put it in perspective. I have a daughter at the elementary school. There are about 100 elementary teachers in the district. Cutting 40 teachers would mean my daughter's class size would be well over 40 students. I have two daughters at the high school. Cutting 40 teachers at the high school would mean my kids have to take college classes in huge auditoriums, which we do not have. With those 6 members who voted for that tax decrease, cut music, cut sports, or cut all other extracurriculars? Well, you don't have to make that decision because you'd have to cut them all. To the new board members and the existing board members, you were not elected to do small things or to shy away from big problems. You're dealing with the single biggest and worst decision in Bethel Park School Board history, a decision made against the recommendation of the superintendent, a decision that our auditor just said takes away our ability to deal with unexpected expenses, a decision concocted in the shadows without proper discussion and public comment, a decision that went against the will of the voters who chose candidates who promised to move our district forward. No one wants high taxes, but we do want a good education, okay? I also take issue with you saying raise taxes. It would be restore taxes. Before that decision, we had not raised millage in several years. Our programming and our scores have gone down. We do have the lowest millage rate in the area, and that's before that decrease. We do want low taxes. We want efficient organization in our schools, but we do want good schools. In fact, we want great schools. I want to help you get this thing passed, and I know many, many people that are with me. Thank you very much to all the board who's pushing for this.
Sharon Janisic, 4314 Anna Street. I also support the referendum. In my opinion, what we need in this district at this moment is time. We need time to thoroughly examine all of the plans, all of the ideas, all of the potential ways we can reduce expenses, what steps we will need to take to make the improvements that are necessary that the community has called for. And we need time to gather that input and to look at those numbers and to run various scenarios. I support the referendum because it backs the clock up and gives you all some time. To the best of my knowledge, no one in this room is interested in taxes any higher than they were prior to the end of June. It's restoring what we already had so that a new board with new ideas about modern learning and what our students need has time to gather input from all the stakeholders and look at everyone's ideas and try to move forward together as a community, building consensus with thorough analysis. And I support that. It's the smart thing and the responsible thing to do. Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other public comments on agenda items?
Hi, Ron Workmeister, 4750 Robert Drive. I see that there's a proposal to have a referendum to increase the school tax back to the high rate of last year, even though we had been running the budget with a surplus of about $3 million per year while I was on the board. I can in no way give all the facts in these short 2 minutes, so let me start by saying that being on the school board for the past 4 years, I had worked hard to do what was best for students and all of Bethel Park. I know that we currently have a very strong Bethel Park School District that has improved in many ways, like with security rankings, busing, curriculum, and then, like, for example, the announcement in December mentioning that Bethel Park was in the top 250 in the nation for the prestigious national AP testing passing, and our overall ranking improvement in the state showing us now at 23. On this new budget that's being discussed, I want the citizens to be clear that this preliminary budget that shows $92 million is a worst-case scenario that we always see in January every single year to start the budget process rolling. And then every single year, this budget ends up being much less, as we have seen. Another critical fact is that the class size in Bethel Park and many other districts, just like we saw with the city, has been dropping. The latest data shows that in October, ours had dropped even further to 4,041 students. If we just simply compare ourselves to some of our neighbors like Peters and Upper St. Clair, we see that we are comparable to the number of students, but we have 55 more teachers than Peters and 54 more teachers in Upper St. Clair, and we have 43 special education teachers in Peters, we have 43 special education teachers to Peters 32 and Upper St. Clair's 38. Another critical fact is that Bethel Park has an extremely high cost student ratio. I have owned property for many years in Bethel Park, and I truly want our district to be strong, vibrant, and fiscally sound, not like many districts that have had to lay off teachers or continually put its citizens further into debt. I wanted to leave the board with a strong and most sincere request that you do not fall prey to any one group that has an agenda besides keeping the Bethel Park School District strong and fiscally stable, and do not squander away the school district budget. If cost gets much higher, citizens will have difficulty in paying. If anyone would like more details of what I have said, please see me after me. I pray for you all to do your best, and thank you.
Mr. Workmeister, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
I was just wondering, as I was looking over all the financial statements and so forth, when you made the motion to move to 21 millage rate, how did you pick that number? Because that number is lower than 2004's millage rate.
Yeah, what it is after being on the board for 4 years, seeing how what we have had for our surpluses and seeing how the budget's always been coming in under, knowing the funding had changed and increased, PSERS, we were leveling off. We still have the student-teacher ratio, which as we have been doing for the past 4 years.
I'm wondering about the 21. Why did you pick 21?
Well, it just some simple math, and it wasn't real scientific to get a number that seems to it still could work, especially if the board looks at what was mentioned about cutting some funding cutting the when the teachers retire, to let them not be replaced unless it's been proven that it has to be replaced, and that's what we followed along, and that saves $3.5 million.
I understand all your arguments.
Okay,
I'm
well
just
then.
wondering about the 21 because that's lower than 2004, which was 15
Well,
years ago.
I'll tell you what, we can go over some details. I mean, it's hard to do, it's hard to do the math right here to show everything. I do not bring the data with
I
me.
just was wondering,
I know.
this was curious to me when I found out from our audit report that 21 was lower than 2004.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering.
Sure, so we can talk more. Thanks.
All right, Mr. Scalzo, Curriculum Committee, please.
Okay, there are 6 items under Curriculum Committee. Number 1, the 2021 school calendar, option 4. Number 2, local holidays. Number 3, school-sponsored overnight educational activities. Number 4, dyslexia screening and early literacy intervention pilot program expansion grant approval. Number 5, professional development. And number 6, additional January graduate. Would anyone like any of these items withheld?
Number 1, please.
I was going to say that too.
Anybody else?
Just number 1.
Well, I'd like to move items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Scalzo and seconded by Mr. Modrak.
Yes.
Items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 9-0. Oh, I forgot to ask for any comments. Anybody have any comments on any of those items? Okay. All right, I'm still learning this process. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So option 4, we,
You have to move it and.
Okay.
We have to move it first.
okay, I'd like to move option 4, or the school calendar, 2020, 2021, option 4.
Okay, moved by Mr. Scalzo and seconded by
Mr. Nagel.
Mr. Nagel. Any discussion on the school calendar?
Yeah, Mrs. Dovas, I do have a couple questions. Since our last meeting, we received several emails opposing this one and going back to item number 3. So I'm just a little concerned that it's like a 50-50 or whatever split, so whatever decision we make tonight is not going to be happy to everyone in the community, which it never is, I understand. But, I mean, does anybody else have thoughts on that?
We did have a lot of comments, one way or the other, regarding various things. We really do appreciate all those comments that parents made to us about that. Some comments were in favor of the later start. Some comments were in favor of the long vacation. Some comments were not in favor of the long winter vacation. There were lots of comments that were made. I think that ultimately we do have to make a decision about that. Is it possible to put option 4 up there? The option 4 calendar, as we're voting on tonight, has the start of the school year on August 26th for students. The reasoning behind that is that young students typically have a difficult time starting with a full week of school for that first week of school. So historically, in the past, we've usually tried to start school in the middle of the week. Additionally, we had asked about whether the 25th of November and the 23rd of December might be early release days, and I wasn't sure if we looked into the time or the hours. Mrs. Wells, did you explore that or not, or what?
Yeah, I would just say that the difficult part, as I was trying to say before, we can continue to look and see if that is a possibility, if it's something that you want to do, but the hard part is lining up all those hours and making sure that because of cancellations or other things that you absolutely have enough, in particular for those two groups. That's a hard thing to determine always ahead of time, from my perspective. You could come close and we can assume that, but the only downside to that would be if you put it on there and then for some reason you needed those hours back later, you couldn't go back and get them. I mean, so that's a little bit of my, my concern with it. Of making that decision now or then and not knowing what maybe May or June. If that's your decision that you make to do that, we'll obviously do whatever it is that you wish. That may or may not make for some changes or some difficult decisions later in the year in the spring or something. Could happen. And it's not everywhere, but primarily I would say that it is our seniors and our seniors that go to the career and technical school in particular, that are close on hours. But it's up to you. I just want to make sure that's known because it might work out perfect. We could run the numbers and see if that would work. But if it didn't work out, then we'd have to figure out how we're going to make those hours up. And that's kind of difficult in and around union contracts to figure out how you're going to add hours.
But those decisions, if we make them, they would be made in the fall, and the weather that usually impacts our hours and so forth happens in the spring, right?
So most of the time when we have a day off, we make the day up, so you have to have a certain amount of days, so that is a little less of the issue. However, when you look down the stretch, there are some early dismissal days, for example, already in place that high schools may use for the seniors and those types of things, and you have to look at those days and hours. So graduation and practice, as an example, is legal reason up to a certain amount that would count as a day, but hours, you see what I'm saying? So those are the kind of things that happen, as one example. And there are some other things. So it's kind of a thing that we have to discuss and see where we're at as we progress through to the spring. And you don't want those students in particular to be short or have to miss anything that the other kids would get to go to or have to, you know what I'm saying there? So
Mrs. Dobus, can I also point out that this current academic year, we have 6 Act 80 days where we start 2 hours late. Next academic year, we're only having 4. So there's hopefully some hours there that could be bought too as we look at this, and if we can make a decision on the early dismissals later on down the road, there are some opportunities where, again, there's 4 Act 80 days this year for 2 hours.
So the approval for tonight would not include the early release days, but we're asking that you really look at the hours to determine whether or not we can figure out a way to have early release days on the 25th of November and the 23rd of December, and we can always adjust the calendar later, correct?
you can, and I think that on early release, if you give people enough notice, that's one thing. I think, around those days, to be fair. I think 2-hour delays and records days, people need to probably know those farther in advance. But I think people may expect, I don't want to speak for them, but I would say parents and guardians would expect that could be an early release around there. If we gave them enough notice that, could be okay. So we'll look into it. What were the 2 days again? Just one more time so I have.
November 25th and December 23rd. And then additionally, one
Does it
email,
matter?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, do you have a certain amount of hours, or just kind of rotate that schedule like we always do on a typical half day, or is that about what you're looking for in early dismissal? About a half a day? Okay, just for counting hours purposes.
Or you could make it just a 2-hour early release.
Okay, about a half, 2 hours.
Yeah. The one comment that I thought was very valuable, and I'd have to ask the Ms. Wells and Ms. O'Rourke about this also. In March, the end of the 9 weeks occurs on the 26th, and then there is a Records Day on the 29th, and then there is a 2-hour delay on the 30th, and then we have school for a day, and then we have the spring break. So one parent had remarked that that day and a half in the middle of that week, it was either a parent or a staff member, probably would be not as valuable. And I was just wondering if the Records Day could be moved to the 31st rather than on that Monday, so it would be in conjunction with the spring break. And then also whether or not that 2-hour early delay start could be changed to an early release in service. That question actually can be answered later. But is there a serious problem about moving a Records Day 2 days further? Ms. Wells or Ms.
So
O'Rourke?
that's a conversation that we've had with the union, to ask, and they have asked previous to have them sort of bookend a weekend, so that's why we made it that way. That's why they allowed, like, in October, that it was a Wednesday, end of the 9 weeks, but that we moved the Records Day to the Friday of that week, and that was, okay, and a fair conversation. We did not bring up moving.
It just educationally makes sense to me.
Correct, I understand
To
what you're
move
saying.
that,
We
to
did not
move
bring it
that
up.
day. Are you all understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right.
Do you all
Yeah.
agree
And
that
it
we
all-
should
yeah.
move
It'll be a
that
little bit
day?
more fluid that way. you know.
Yes. So,
Mrs. Dobus, the issue of why and this was also brought forward a few years ago from parents, when we don't have the Records Day directly at the end of the 9 weeks, then there's a delay on the posting of the report card, which then means that the parents are getting the grades within like a 2 week into the next 9 weeks. And that's why it was moved to be directly after the 9 weeks was over, which was a concern. If that's not a concern any longer, then putting it on that Wednesday does in fact give us that same idea of the weekend, because it's right before the break. But I just want to make sure that the families are aware that when the Records Day is delayed after the 9 weeks, the 9 weeks starts, and then the report cards get done, and then there's
well, there's
I think there's a 4-day turnaround of when they get posted.
But there's still regular postings throughout 9 weeks.
They
all
are.
the time, and they're still pretty accurate in terms of what the possibility of the grade might be.
And that very well could be adjusted just with the change of the computer technology, because the complaint of the delay might have been before we actually were doing the uploads like we are currently, so.
So I would like to make a motion then to move the Records Day from March 29th to March 31st.
Second.
And Mr. Nagel seconding it?
Are we going to be also able to move that early
Well,
dismissal?
that can be part of that whole other early release. That could be a later decision, I think.
Can we add that somehow to make sure that they know that that's another day we want to look at? Because we only added the 25th and
I hate to
23rd.
interrupt, but I just wanted to point out that April 1st would be a snow makeup day. If you move that to the middle of the week and then you have to use April 1st as a snow makeup day, now does that make that a little goofy? that you're not
Well,
going.
we'll use April 5th.
Well, you're gonna use that anyway, I mean, that's your second option, but I just wanted to, and I got no dog in this fight, but I just wanted to point that out, that it might end up being a little goofy if you're going to school on the 30th, or not going to school on the 31st,
Right.
and then going to school on the 1st, so I'm gonna
Right.
either way.
I understand. We'll deal with it when it happens. So that would be an amendment to the,
Right, to the underlying motion. So you vote on the amendment, then you vote on the motion.
okay. Any other, I guess, first of all, any questions about the amendment?
I just
Did you-
want to make sure I got it right. Record stay is moving to 3:31.
Yes. And in your discussions about hours and so forth, in your discussions with your central administrators, if the 30th could be, instead of a 2-hour delay, a 2-hour early release.
You made that motion already?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just asking him, that's a decision for later, I'm just asking him
So the later
to look at that.
decisions are to look at early releases for those 2 days and 3:30, moving 2-hour delay to the afternoon. No, it's not a delay, it's an early release.
Right. Okay, so all in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so the amendment passes. And now, questions or comments about the calendar itself?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a quick comment on it. I've been on the board, this is my third calendar. It's actually one of the tougher decisions I have to make every year because I know the calendar affects different families and different people different ways. And it's a very subjective decision. There's a lot of data both ways. I've gotten a lot of emails, responded to most of them, some of them over the last day or so I haven't gotten to respond to, but I just wanted to say everybody has valid points. It's, they're all very valid concerns, and it's just one of the tougher decisions I make every year. But I personally favor later start for our students, so that's why I'm going to go with option 4.
Any other comments on the calendars?
Just the feedback is great, so keep it coming on many other topics, so.
We may not get to return every email
Right.
in a timely manner, but we do read them all.
Okay, so now we'll take a vote on the calendar. Option 4, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Motion passes 8-1. Okay, Mr. McGregor, personnel?
There are 13 items on the agenda tonight. Would anybody like any of these held out for discussion? Nobody? So I move to approve the 13 items.
Second.
Do you guys out in the audience, do you have a copy of all 13? Okay. It would take me a while to read through all of these.
Darren, I apologize. Can we hold out number, I scrolled right past it, I apologize. Number 3, please.
Anything else? Okay. So I move to approve 1 and 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Second.
Mr. McGregor moved 1 through 2 and 4 through 13, and it was seconded by Mr. Nagel. Any questions about any of those items? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, those motions pass 9-0.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 3, approval of staffing changes. Open the following position, assistant principal at the high school.
Okay, so motion made by Mr. McGregor, seconded by Mr. Nagel. Any discussion about this item?
Yes, Mrs. Dobus, first I want to say that I'm not against the position, but as we discussed at our committee meeting last week, I would prefer that we find a way not to have to add a body. If we can make this a revenue neutral or relatively revenue neutral position, I would be very happy about that, considering where we think we are or don't know where we are budget-wise. So that's my thought.
So are you saying you...
Like if we have a retirement, we don't, unless we absolutely have to replace the person,
So
we use that position to fill the principal's position or
right, but this
other
is, this is
potential.
about opening the position. You say you're okay with opening the position.
I'm okay with
but
opening,
you just
but
want, in terms of filling it, that we
Right.
explore as many options as
Correct.
possible, which isn't part of actually of the vote tonight.
No, but it's
Okay.
part of the discussion
Right,
about
yes, exactly,
opening the
exactly,
position.
exactly.
Yeah, I wasn't here for last week's meeting, but I was going to say the same thing, that this doesn't commit us to hire, but it does give us a position, and we still can look at, reshuffling internal resources and things like that. Right?
But those internal discussions need to be held, not out.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Right, I just want to make that.
It's just, this is just the position and creating.
Any other discussion?
No, I can support opening the position, but I want to see it looked at, in many options.
Okay, we could hear you very clearly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all in favor of number 3, opening the position of the assistant principal at the high school, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Okay, motion passes 9-0. Mr. Spacuzza.
Thank you, Mrs. Dobus. Seeing 2 items under facilities and services this evening, I would like to move the following. Would anyone like any of them held out separately? Sorry. Hearing none, I move the following 2 items. The water line relocation project. We finally have a not-to-exceed cost of $45,000. And item number 2 is the purchase of a replacement univent unit for Washington Elementary School at the cost of $5,565.
Second.
The facilities agenda has been moved by Mr. Spacuzza and seconded by Mr. Christensen. Any comments or questions about those 2 items? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Finance Committee, Mr. Christensen.
On the finance agenda, there are 12 items. Would anybody like any of these held out?
Yes, 5 and 12, please.
Can we hold out 11 also?
Would you like all those voted on individually or
Yes.
grouped together? Okay. Okay, any others? So to start with, I move number 1, December 2019, January 20th salaries and bills, November 2019 financial report, number 3, December 2019 financial report, number 4, budgetary transfers, number 6, acceptance of the audit report for the year ending June 30th, Number 7, approval of student services contract. Number 8, approval of the purchase of information technology services. 9, E-rate consultant. 10, sale of district vehicle.
I need a second.
Second.
Second. Jim did.
Mr. Modrak seconded. Any discussion on any of these items? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 9-0.
Okay. Oh, well, how about we just go to the order? So I move number 5, the adoption of the 2020-2021 preliminary general fund budget.
Second.
Number 5 has been moved by Mr. Christensen and seconded by Mr. Nagel. Discussion on this item.
Yeah, I have a few questions. You know, the preliminary budget for this year, I know the millage rate is high as it has been in past years, but the millage rate on the preliminary budget is 24.4835 mils, which reflects a 16.89% increase. The maximum with index, according to this, is 21.651 mils. So that's an $8.6 million difference between our current millage and the proposed millage. It's also, at the maximum index, a $6.858 million difference. Is that correct?
I didn't do those calculations.
What's that?
I didn't do those calculations.
No, I mean, they're actually in the,
We're not setting millage. We don't set millage with the preliminary budget.
okay.
We just set the expenditures and the revenue. I give you the millage just for informational purposes.
Yeah, and it calculates the millage for you based on the expenditures and revenues?
No, I calculate the millage. It doesn't do it for me.
So that's what I'm asking. So in the preliminary budget, it shows 24.4835 mils to balance.
We have to, in order to apply for referendum exceptions, like I told you at the budget meeting, we have to have a budget above the index.
No, I understand.
So when I do, let me finish. When I do the budget, I just do it as it is, and I give you what the millage would be if we balance with the whole thing with the millage.
Without taking out of the general fund.
As long, it doesn't matter. As long as it's over the index, that's all that matters for us to be able to apply for referendum exceptions, which we probably won't get, but I like to apply for them anyway.
Right. So, thank you, that's actually exactly what I was asking. I know it's a high number.
It's very high number.
Yes.
Yes.
So last year, the 2019-2020 preliminary budget was based on a 23.5168 mil, which was within the index. According to the 2019-20 preliminary budget, which was a $1.9 million difference. Now, we know from the auditor's report that we came up $1.3 million in the plus in overall between the capital reserves, general fund expenditures, and revenues. That was a difference of $1.9 million in the preliminary budget. I understand completely. We're going to hammer down these numbers as we proceed through this. But I guess my question is, we're looking at a millage increase on the preliminary budget last year. It was 2.8% based on the index or less. And this year it's 16.89%. Just wondering, is that mainly due to the drop in the millage that was enacted last year?
Well, I mean, it could be. I mean, we haven't even begun to work on this budget yet, so everything here is way preliminary. So, you know, I try to do a budget that's a worst-case scenario for the preliminary budget, because going down is better than going up. So that's what I did. I don't remember what the 1920 preliminary budget was, to be honest with you.
Okay, fair enough. The revenues you, or the expenditures you projected in your worst case scenario this year, did you base them on expenditures from last year, or what did you base them?
We base the salaries and benefits on who we have right now.
Right.
It's not on what we had last year. The other things are based on historical data.
Right.
So that's what we do. And I honestly didn't look that close at them for the preliminary budget. Again, it's just, you know, something that the state makes us do 6 months before we even know what we need.
Okay.
So,
All right. So according to the calculations, the property assessments, with the 22.8763 mil budget, it would, instead of the 6.858 million short on the preliminary, it would only be 4 million short, but it'd still be a shortfall with the, according to the preliminary, with the millage increase back to the last year's millage. Is that roughly what we figured for prior years? Because we had that millage for several years, I believe 3 years prior. $56 million, $56,953 million roughly.
I really don't know what your question is.
So based on the 22.8763 mils, can we expect roughly $57 million in revenue?
I don't know that yet. I don't know that yet. I didn't do 22.8763 because we have 21. I don't.
Connie, we can hear you.
No, I was looking at prior
Maybe go on
budgets
mute.
and the property assessments were.
She should put
Well, our
on.
assessment changes every year,
Yeah.
so it'll be based on that.
Okay. Okay. They were the only questions I had.
Connie, did you want to talk about the number
Yeah,
5?
I was just commenting that is the preliminary until we get an actual first draft. We don't really know what we're gonna do. You know, that was my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, number 5, the preliminary general fund budget for 2020-2021 has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 9-0.
Next on the list, I move that number 11, purchase of a district vehicle.
I'll second it.
And you had a question?
Yeah.
Purchase of the district vehicle has been moved by Mr. Christensen and seconded by Ms. Turner.
Did we buy this?
Yes.
Okay, it didn't say it anywhere, that's why I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, if you recall, just for the public in case, you gave me the ability to do that and
Right.
retroactively do it.
We did, retroactively did it, I just didn't know if we actually were able to get the bid and the price that we.
You're right. That was the question. We did get it. It's in our garage. So
Okay, just clarifying.
They were
that we-
very thankful, by the way, when the
Okay, number 11 has been moved and seconded. The purchase of a district vehicle, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 9-0.
Then on to number 12, I move to adopt the tax referendum.
Second.
Tax referendum has been moved and seconded by Mr. Christensen and Mr. Nagel. Any discussion on this item?
Yes, I do have a statement on that. As most of you know, our revenues were significantly cut when 6 members of the board voted on a last-minute amendment to our 2019-20 budget that reduced our millage rate from 22.8763 to 21 mils. This was done after months of public meetings, conversations, and preparation, led our Director of Finances and Superintendent to recommend no millage change. This move was made without any serious evaluation of the practicality, sustainability, or overall impact of such a move on our district. It was done done by 6 school directors, 5 of which are no longer serving. They knew that they would not have the responsibility of dealing with those impacts. Furthermore, these same school directors blocked those of us concerned with the future of our district from meaningful information that would help assess our situation. While we were able to retrieve some superficial information before this block was implemented, as well as through public right to know procedure, we weren't able to start gathering much of the information until the new school directors were sworn in on December 4th, less than 2 months ago. Our administrators have done a phenomenal job in gathering much of the information we need in such a short time, especially when this time span fell over the holidays. Thank you all for that. With the information gathered thus far, I'm fully convinced that we need the millage reinstated in order to prevent lasting damage to our district, formulate a strategic plan, and move DP forward. On July 15th, as per my request, Mr. Carazzi provided a chart showing that all things remaining the same in a millage increase of 2.8% a year, we would not be back to our revenue level until the 2023-24 school year. At the January 14th Finance Committee meeting, estimates appeared more dire, with an overall 3.09% increase in revenues and 3.34% increase in expenditures, which was based on several past years' revenues and expenditures. Our general fund will be in the negative and continuing on a downward trajectory by 2022-2023. This is all assuming we continue on a path of, as Mr. Carazzi put it, ultra-conservative expenditure decisions. We have many challenges ahead of us. Mr. Keith, our facilities director, is retiring next month. Mr. Carazzi, who wears many, many different hats, is retiring at the end of the school year. And while Mr. Carazzi has done a superhuman job in juggling multiple immense responsibilities, I don't know that it's reasonable to expect one person to be able to replace him. Our high school principal, associate principal, and assistant to the superintendent did a remarkable job in tracking down data and highlighting the absolute need for an assistant principal at the high school to effectively fill the needs and meet the responsibilities in that building that only a certified principal can attend to. We are hoping to settle the paraprofessionals contract in the near future, and while that contract is far from settled, it is reasonable to expect an increase in salaries when it is. Likewise for the bus drivers. As we speak of salaries, we have seen several teachers at the top end of the salary scale and do not anticipate a significant decrease in this due to retirements for 5 to 10 years. This means our largest cost driver, salaries, will continue to increase our expenditures for years to come. Another concern going forward is facilities. The average age of our facilities is 52 years old. The average age of our school buildings is 51 years old. If you take out the new high school, that age jumps to 57 years old, with the youngest being 45. It is unreasonable to assume that there may not be an elevated cost in maintaining these facilities. As a matter of fact, the facilities plan that I received by right to know request on September 24th indicated a need for new Univacs. At last week's meeting, Mr. Keith informed us that this will cost us approximately $1 million. We currently have this in our capital reserves, but with the negative revenue in respect to expenditures for years to come, we have little means to replenish this fund for the future. These concerns only scratch the surface of what we know while maintaining the status quo. They do not begin to address what we don't or can't know. That's precisely why depleting our fund balance can be devastating, and why our auditors state in the very first paragraph of their management letter comments that, and I quote, "It is important to remember that an appropriate level of fund balance is essential for the proper operation and fiscal stability of the district. This referendum will not make us positive in relation to expenditures, as seen in tonight's preliminary budget. It will not replenish any losses we likely have already incurred in our fund balance. What passing this referendum will do is give us a fighting chance to balance the budget with a reasonable amount of non-committed general fund while formulating a strategic plan based on us moving forward, not backwards. It will enable us to do this while potentially passing a fund balance policy that protects our district and our taxpayers by setting expected parameters for the various funds. A referendum to restore our village will allow us to search out inefficiencies and redundancies before raising taxes to the maximum tax for years to come and cutting programs and services that we have come to expect and love. Please support this referendum.
Thank you, Mr. Nagel.
That's really good.
I'd like to add this to the
Yes,
minutes.
just a second. Just a second, Mrs. Rule. Okay, go ahead.
My only comment is, I can't support a referendum at this particular time. And so the reasons are that Mr. Nagel has been asking for us to be very precise in all of our numbers, but yet he has just thrown out all these big long wish lists that will take us 10 years. What we need, and before I would support a referendum, would be I want to know the exact amount that we are going for, what it is going to be used for, a plan on how and when we will be using each of it, so that we know why we are borrowing this money for increase the taxes. Once that our citizens pay for something, they don't know what they're paying for. Just a lot of big wish lists of things that I think some of them do need to be done. But we need to know how much, when, what for, what's our plan, and then I can support a referendum. But I cannot support it at this time.
Well, we know the how
I-
much. We're asking it to be restored.
Go ahead.
We're asking it to be restored to the 2018-19 level. So the how much is there. You know, it was very short-sighted. I believe Mr. Workmeister said it just came to him at a meeting, that he wanted to drop the millage down to 21 mills. So if we're going to look at numbers, that's great, but we know the level of what we were getting in 2018-19 in terms of tax millage.
And I'd like to add, I didn't really put out a wish list. I put out things that we know we're going to have to spend over the next couple of years. The only thing that's really subjective is if we hire an additional person to replace Fuzzy. And I think even with the previous board's conversations about how exceptional he's done juggling all these things, it's not unreasonable to expect that that may be necessary. So as far as a wish list, we haven't even begun talking about a lot of the things that the community asked for. We're just talking about getting back to an even playing field, so we have a fighting chance to develop that plan that you're specifically asking for, that I've asked for over a year now, and that's called a strategic plan. So that's what I'm asking for, is that we can do this so we can start building a strategic plan based on looking forward instead of based on negative revenues is in relation to our expenditures for years to come.
I think we also all need to remember that this needs to be done in accordance with the Board of Elections office. I think our solicitor could help us on those dates, and we are very much up against a large deadline looming. And before you do that, I want everybody to understand that the auditors that just left here said this important message in the management letter. It is also important to remember that using fund balance to balance the budget results in a non-reoccurring source of funds. Because of this, any fund balance used in a given year will need to be made up in future years. The non-recurring source of funds can only be made up in a combination of three ways: revenue from growth, expenditure reductions, or tax increases. We're not asking for a tax increase. We're asking it to be restored to what it was before June 25th of last year.
And so just to clarify, in terms of the timeline, under Act 1, the board is required to submit the referendum question to the Department of Elections for the county 60 days prior to the primary where the referendum would be voted on. Because 2020 is a presidential election year, they moved the primary up, so in a sense that kind of forces the decision to be made a month earlier. So that's why the resolution's been put on tonight's agenda.
And that's where we only have a preliminary budget.
February 28th.
That's right, yeah. So February 28th is the deadline to have the referendum request to the Department of Elections.
Mrs. Dobus, I have a comment.
Sure.
I guess I'm not sure how to say this, but I think that it's going to be difficult for me to support the referendum today. I believe there may be the necessity for the referendum, but I also believe, and I know Mrs. Janusik and I have not always agreed, but she said something very important tonight, that we need time. We need time to know exactly where we are and where we're going to be. I think next year would be a much better time because we'd have a much better understanding of our current budget, where we end the year, and what we truly need. That way, we wouldn't be either overtaxing or undertaxing the citizens and do it correctly. I know there's a rush to do this, I get it, but I think time is on our side. We have the fund balance to support this through the next year, and if we need it, we could certainly do it next year, and we'd have a much, much better understanding of what and how much we need.
Can I make one comment? I agree with the need to apply logic and study. I would have liked to apply that last year before we decreased the taxes.
Oh, I can only look forward at this point, Barry. I don't know, there's no good reason to look backward because it's not going to change anything. Whatever was done was done. I had nothing to do with it, so I'm trying to apply what I believe is the best solution for the district and the citizens, the students, the staff, et cetera. So I think that we'd have a much better number next year, and a much more accurate number than we're going to have this year. We may either underestimate what we need, or we may overestimate what we need. It's just my position, that's all.
Mr. Obis, I think we need, like, agree with Barry. I understand what Russ is saying. This should have been done last year. I want to put the playing field back to where it was last year so we can do this proper process, open, public input, do a full review of what our needs are going to be in these upcoming years. But we need to get back to that basis we were last year before that millage cut rate was passed. So I'm going to support this here tonight, and I hopefully we'll be able to move forward and get back to a level playing field we were last year, and then make the necessary decisions we need to move this district forward.
Any other comments? I'm in favor of the referendum also, and I understand what you're saying, Mrs. Rule and Mr. Spicuzza. However, I don't want to be panicked or wait until like it's too late to make any move in order to restore our millage rate to the previous years. I don't want to do it like in a panic because we're having to furlough teachers and so forth and so on. I want to do it in a deliberate fashion with a strategic plan and plan our financial future together. And I think the way to do it is through this referendum. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Any other comments before we vote?
Yeah, I would like to make one comment. The previous board agreed with the superintendent and director of finance's recommendation to keep the millage rate at what we're asking to restore it to until after several of them were voted off the ballot in the primary. So I fully believe this was a politically motivated move to try to hamstring this new board and prevent us from moving forward with a logical strategic plan based on a solid financial footing.
Thank you. Mr. Karazi, will you do roll call for this vote, please?
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dobus,
Yes.
Mr. McGregor,
Yes.
Mr. Modrak,
Yes.
Mr. Nagel,
Yes.
Mrs. Rule,
No.
Mr. Scalzo,
Yes.
Mr. Spicuzza,
No.
Mrs. Turner.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-2.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes 7-2. Okay, Policy Committee, Ms. Turner.
We have 2 policies up for final reading and 1 policy up for the second reading. Policy 805.2 is the school security personnel. Policy 805 is the emergency preparedness and response, both up for third reading. And policy 805.1 is up for the second reading. Anyone have any?
Yeah, I'd like number 1 held up.
Okay. I'm moving policies number 2 and 3.
I don't,
No.
no.
Oh, no, I'm
Only
moving
2.
policy 2, sorry.
Second.
Policy 2 has been moved and seconded by Ms. Turner and Mr. Christensen. Any questions on this particular policy? This is the one where we changed may to shall, is that correct?
Yes.
Number 1 is where we changed may to shall.
Number 2 is not that. Number 2 is... Number 2 is the one that we got the, no, it's the one, no. Number 1, number 2 is just the one that we changed may to shall.
Yes.
So that's the one, in order to make it clear, it's the one where we said that we shall conduct additional, this is number 2, policy 805. The one where we said we shall conduct additional security drills after the first 90 days of the school year, and up to 2, they may be conducted in place of fire drills. Okay? So all in favor of that one, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay,
Okay, now
so that passes 9-0.
Now I move approval of policy number 805.2.
Second.
Policy 805.2 has been moved by Ms. Turner and seconded by Mr. Christensen. At this time, I'd like to ask the solicitor to review his comments that he made about changing that item.
Sure. So there was some discussion last time about the revision for the school resource officer definition that's set forth in page 4 of the policy. I went back and looked afterwards at the Safe Schools provision in the school code, and this particular language in the policy was just meant to track the definition of school resource officer that's in the school code. Now, sometimes when PSBA drafts these policies, they include a significant amount of the verbiage from the statute. That's what they've done in this case. So my bottom line is, if the board decides they want to make this change, that's fine. I mean, you're not really going to be in a situation where you're using sheriffs for school resource officers. I just wanted it to be clear that to the extent that this policy by and large tries to mirror statutory language, if you do make that change, then this particular definition isn't going to track with what the statute says.
So if I understand correctly, this language is pretty much merely defining what, according to school code, the school resource officer may be.
Right. Yeah, the school code has a definition for who may be a school resource officer, and it includes people such as sheriffs that aren't going to be your school resource officer. So I understand it's not applicable to your situation, but the policy language is just meant to track the statutory language.
Okay.
Okay, and it is a change that the PSBA made.
Not to take the language out, it was a change that we made based on Mr. Modrak's recommendation.
Oh.
I just, the point being the fact that we will never use a sheriff. It's Allegheny County, it's municipal, but I understand what the solicitor's saying. That was put in place because there are some counties within the Commonwealth that do not have the availability of municipal police, or even state police. In reality, it makes no difference. I just wanted a little more ownership to what we were doing here and have done in Bethel Park. But again, going with the solicitor, like I said, it would make no difference at this point.
So will you move to
We'll move,
add that
I'll
back
move to my objection to it last week, my addition to go to the original one that was presented as it is, without keeping the wording here as PSBA has.
PSBA?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, is that a?
Yeah, no,
All right, so amendment to the school personnel, school security personnel, we are reverting to the original language. Restoring.
That's a good word.
Restoring the original language, which defines, according to Pennsylvania School Code, who might be a school resource officer. Okay, all in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so the amendment carries 9-0. So now the new language
Follows PSBA.
follows the PSBA recommendation. So, okay, so I'd like to, for us to vote on 805.2. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Okay, so 805.1 is final reading next time. Okay. Other, would you please take that, Mr. Nagel?
Under other, we have one item, it's a student agreement. I move that one item.
Second.
Okay, the student agreement has been moved by Mr. Nagel and seconded by Mr. Christensen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Nay. Motion passes 9-0. At this time, public comments on any items, agenda items or other items. Any public comments? Okay, seeing none. Any board comments on any of the items? Anybody want to make any board comments?
I would just make one comment.
Sure.
The good news report was really, really, really wonderful again. And I just want to thank everyone that's responsible for that from the top to the bottom and everywhere in between. Thank you.
I second that. Any other comments? Okay, have a motion to adjourn?
So moves.
Well, that was fast. Mr. Spacuzza.
I've been quiet
Motion
on
to
motions.
adjourn, and Mr. Nagel seconded for adjournment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?